Media is now streaming live on Facebook.
Fantastic. What's up, everybody? Hello, and welcome to Downtime with Initiative Roles. My name is Richard E. Darshwood with Initiative Roles, and we have a super fun live panel discussion for you today. If you're watching this and wondering who the heck I am, let me go ahead and just tell you. My name is Richard Darshwood. My friends call me Darsh, so please just call me Darsh, because if you're watching this live stream, we're already friends, whether you like it or not. A couple months ago, I set up some online virtual trainings for improv classes, specifically geared for dungeon masters and players of the game Dungeons and Dragons. Within a few weeks of doing these online classes, I eventually saw a very, very familiar name pop in on the registry list. A good buddy of mine, his name is John Cowgell. I've known him for years. We've worked together. We've played together. We've gotten to know each other pretty well over the years. But I didn't realize how vast his experience and expertise is in this game. I'm not going to tell you everything about him because I'm going to let him explain a little bit about his own background. But in this panel discussion, what we're going to talk about specifically is creating characters. He's got some really great and easy to use, simple techniques that you can start utilizing immediately after you watch this to start making really, really intriguing and memorable characters for your games, whether they're NPCs or things to think about when you're making your own PCs. By all means, let's just, without further ado, jump right into it. I'm going to pass it over to John. John, how you doing, sir?
I am doing well, Rich. How about yourself?
Doing great. Thank you, sir.
I'm actually, just to let you know, because we are very new at this particular type of things. Yes, when you press the button in the event, it brings it to this. Because I've got it going on my phone just to make sure.
Yes. First time we've ever done live. So we apparently are working so far. We are apparently broadcasting. And for those of you who are coming into this late and you don't even hear what I'm saying right now, don't worry about it. You'll be able to watch this all over again on YouTube or just watch it again on our Facebook page.
Indeed. And just to let you guys know, we are operating, taking a look from what I can see live on my screen and what I see on the on my phone. That's actually got the live stream going on. There is about a 20-second delay. So if you, I'm going to be asking various times during this presentation if you guys have any questions. And if you do, feel free to go ahead and pop it in the chat below. Rich has said he's been going to be nice enough to monitor it just in case. But keep in mind that there is a about 20-second delay for when you post questions to when things will be seen. And there'll be several times during the panel that I'll be stopping and asking for particular questions. If you have questions, regardless of what you're doing, feel free to go ahead and type them down there and we will get to them as much as we can. And there's going to be a little bit of time after the entire panel is over for discussions and questions as well. So again, feel free, let your curiosity run wild and feel free to ask some questions, not only about the panel in general, but about Dungeons and Dragons in general, any type of role playing, or about Darsh or myself, and we'll be happy to answer whatever we can. Keep in mind, of course, keep it family friendly. This is a family show, not how to make a family show.
100% accurate. I mean, you can ask those dirty questions. I just may not actually read them to John.
Fair enough. Alrighty, Darsh, are you ready to go, my friend?
Yes, I believe so. Let's get right into it, sir.
Wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and pop on our screen share, and we're going to take a look at my panels here. And I warn you, and I apologize ahead of time, my slides look like somebody made an early 2000s, late 1990s PowerPoint slide presentation for a business, because I am terrible at making slides. So
he used a Commodore 64 to make this PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, good God. You guys get to see the fruit of my brain. So here we go. Can you see, sir?
Yes, we got you.
Wonderful. All righty, cool. So welcome to the panel, What a Character, How to Bring Life to the Voices in Your Head. I am your host, John Cowgell. My friends call me Pocket. I am also known around the Ren Fair circuit as Pocket the Fool. I have been doing this particular type of Ren Fair stuff for the last, 10 years or more of this. And let me see here, actually. I'm going to, give me just a moment. I'm doing some... I'm looking for a hide a taskbar. I warn you, everything's going wonky. I apologize ahead of time.
I mean, we can still see everything.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
I have been in the Ren Fair. I've been a Ren Fair community for the last 10 years or more. So I apologize if everything goes blue for a second because I'm trying to fix something. Doop. There we go. There. Had to hide my taskbar so you could read everything. Oop. Okay, hold on. Doop. Okay, so I have been gaming for approximately 35 years. I've been doing it since I was about 5 years old, when my mother actually sat me on her knee and started to explain to me how to play. And it's been a family thing with with my mother, my aunt, my grandmother, all of my friends and relatives that play. And I've been doing it, like I said, 35 years. And for the last 20 or so years is how long I've been DMing in various stuff, writing modules, writing stories for friends, and DMing several different types of games, DMing, GMing, storytelling, whatever you want to call it. What would you say is your favorite terminology for storytelling, Darsh?
What do you mean by favorite terminology? How do you mean?
Well, I mean, do you prefer DM? Do you prefer GM? Do you prefer
Oh,
storyteller?
my experience is strictly limited to Dungeons and Dragons. Really, I mean, I've dabbled a little bit in other games, but DM is where my heart is. So I always go with Dungeon Master. It's a strange thing to tell your girlfriend, or anyone you start dating, like, oh, on the side, I'm also a Dungeon Master. But it's what I go with.
Fair enough. That's how you can tell a gamey person from a keen person. You ask them what their definition of dungeon master is.
Sure.
I have a second generation tabletop RPGer. I've been, like I said, my mother, my aunt, my grandmother all came together when I was younger and taught me how to play. But like I also said, I've been doing about 10 years on the Ren Fair circuit and about 25 in the haunted attraction industry, which has given me a kind of unique look on how to do improvisational acting, which definitely helps with what you're doing with role playing and especially DMing. And I know, Darsh, you have a fairly interesting history with improvisational acting yourself, especially as of recent.
Yeah, so spent a great deal of time working on stage as a performer. I do magic professionally, and as part of kind of honing that craft, I took the time to study improv theater. I've done a handful of plays and stage productions that didn't just involve magic, but definitely kind of set me up, I think, for a really strong foundation for taking on the role of dungeon master confidently. But that's always been something that I've wanted to work more to get better at, is how to improvise and how to work in impromptu things that your characters or your players will throw at you in a single session, and make that more than just a random occurrence, make that part of the epic adventure. So I wanted to really kind of hone that, and I started initiative roles as a way to help other dungeon masters with the stuff that I've been learning. So every week we get together, we do online workshops where people get together and just collaborate. We have a number of improv exercises that you were a part of, that you totally slayed, and that's kind of how we ended up here. So I'm really excited actually to get into this and find out more about what kind of stuff I can do advance for my character's sake, to bring those characters to life and utilize the skills that I might already have in improv and work in with making my characters super memorable and a little bit more unique, I guess, right?
Indeed, and hopefully people will get some use out of this. And also special thanks to my dear friend, Mr. Darshwood, or Richard Darshwood, Rich, or your stage name, Darshwood the Conjurer.
Mm-hmm.
Or what is it now, Darshwood the Whiskey Wizard?
Yeah. So I live in the Louisville, Kentucky area. Whenever you perform at special live events, there always seems to be a bourbon relation there, whether it's just being served or whether it's a sponsor. I mean, 90% of the stuff that I do in Louisville is sponsored by a bourbon brand somehow, some way. So I ended up branding myself the Whiskey Wizard.
And honestly, it is really catchy, and I have seen some of his shows. The man definitely has a talent not only for capturing the attention of an audience, but very deft fingers at what he does with his sleight of hand.
You're too kind, sir. You're too kind.
No, I simply call it how I see it. And of course, thanks to our dear friend, which is also consequently Mr. Darshwood, with his group initiative roles. Because if it was not that for that popping up in my feed, then none of this would ever have been happening. So again, Rich, thank you so much.
Absolutely, my pleasure. We're so glad to have you, sir.
Now, next step is we're going to take a look at the impetus for this particular thing. This panel discussion that I've developed over the last 4 or 5 years actually came from a piece of media, a book that was called Easy Street, which was written by a young lady named Anne Elizabeth Shepard, also known colloquially, especially in the Milwaukee area, as Jane the Fool. I've known Jane. I've never actually physically met AE. It's been years since we've known each other, but I've never actually had the pleasure of meeting her. She is a wonderful young lady, and she has been in the Ren Fair circuit longer than I have, and actually wrote a book. And Darsh, you actually own a copy of this, don't you?
I do. I picked it up at your recommendation, and I read through it, the majority of it, within a weekend. Honestly, it's less than 200 pages. A lot of it is pertaining specifically for Renaissance Fair actors, performers, but you can get a lot from that, honestly. But you can easily skip past it and just kind of focus on the stuff that's more geared towards character creation, which is some amazing content. It's a hidden gem that most dungeon masters should have in their collection. That's just my humble opinion.
Fair enough. I'm actually exiting this on purpose because I am going to get a couple of links for you, Rich, and I'm going
Sure.
to pop them in the chat so you can pop them in the chat.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Give me just a moment here. So there is our chat. There's the book. And here is a link to A.E. Shepard's website, which is fool.com, where she also does personal appearances, her book sales, where she does she actually does online streaming music as well. So that he'll pop that in the chat when we get a chance.
Yeah, I'm working on that right now, guys. And for those of you watching on YouTube, post live broadcast, I'll make sure and put this in the comments below. So if you want some references, just click on the description, the little diddly do in the bottom.
A little diddly do. Wonderful.
Yeah. Spectacular. We got those.
Huzzah. Going back to presentation. And you don't have to purchase them. You don't have to do any type of, it's not a necessity, but it's definitely something that's helped me. And it's called Easy Street, a guide for players in improvisational, interactive, environmental performance, walk around entertainment, and first-person historical interpretation. It's a wonderful book, and she writes very well. And I've just taken the information there and I've kind of adapted it into working for Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, and you're very, 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 again, it's something that's definitely recommended.
Yeah, and an easy read, and it's entertaining too, because she is hysterical. She's a riot, man. I'm really tempted to make the trip up to it's Milwaukee, right? Is that where she?
That is where she lives, right?
Okay.
And that's where she's based out of. But I don't know if she's actually doing doing any type of the Ren Fair circuits recently, especially with the pandemic. So I keep an eye on her website, and I occasionally watch her live stream music chat. She does a whole bunch of world music things weekly, so I tend to look in there and watch. But I don't know if she's currently on the circuit at the moment because of pandemic.
Well, when we find out, I will be happy to lead a caravan all the way up to Wisconsin just so we can go and find her and meet her in person and watch her work, because golly, she is a joy.
Indeed, she is. Alrighty, well, now without further, by the way, once again, A.E. Shepard, thank you so very much for the wonderful things and the impetus you gave me for this panel, and hopefully I'll do you justice. On to the next slide. So the entire idea behind this panel, the how to bring life to your voices of your head, is to make things as easy as possible. It is what we call the 5 questions. These 5 questions are very almost newsworthy. It's a lot of stuff that people would be the old school who, what, where, when, why, and how. It's similar to what they ask in the book, and it's also been adapted to DMing to make it easy. At the very base of things, while there is other information you can add, the easiest way to get to an NPC, especially if you need it quick, is to ask these 5 questions. Question 1 is, who are you? The very, very basic. You always want an idea of a name that a character can react with. What do you do? What is their profession, or what are they doing that the characters find of interest to them? You're going to do, what do you want? What goal does your character, not the PC, but the NPC, what goal does that NPC have? What is your problem? Now, that sounds fairly antagonistic, and it can be, but it's also known as what stands in your way. What is stopping the NPC from getting them what they want? And finally, and the most important part, is how can the players help? This is the NPC interaction. This is where you can help drop your plot hooks and your quest hooks. So out of curiosity, Darsh, I mean, you've heard me go through these, but which of these are you most curious about, just between you and I?
I think I'm really interested about the what is your problem aspect. I feel like coming into any character creation or character development scenario, I feel like I know who the character is. I feel like I know what they do. I kind of feel like I get a sense of what their motivation is, but though that would easily be number 2, because that's a struggle for me, is trying to find a really good way to motivate this character to do number 4, number 5, how to solve their problem. And of course, number 5, how can they help the player? Number 5, how to help player seems pretty simple when I'm, creating story. I plug in this NPC specifically to deal with a problem, but I have a feeling what you're going to specifically address is from the character standpoint, how that happens. How's it happen so that it feels organic, which I'm really intrigued by. But I think the problem issue is something I'd like to delve into for sure.
Fair enough. And before we actually get into the nitty gritty, I told you that we would stop in the midst of each question or each slide or so and see if we have questions. So I'll go ahead and post it out to you guys that are watching, and would love to have you interact. Which of these 3 questions or which of these 5 questions are you interested in learning the specifics about? Feel free to comment below. We'll leave a few moments because, like I said, there is a bit of a delay there. So if you do have a comment, feel free to leave it.
At this time, we don't have any questions, but we do have somebody who is quite excited that we don't have some, cheesy Zoom backdrop. We actually have our real rooms in the background with our real D&D book collections behind us.
Who's the comment?
That is a Thomas Lampkin Jr., a friend of yours?
Oh, yes, it is. Thomas,
right.
Just to let you know, Thomas, my dear friend, is a wonderful artist, a wonderful cover artist.
Right.
And he is also helps run a local publishing company, Line by Line Publications, with his wonderful wife, Amanda. Anything else pop up?
So yeah, we have an Amanda Hernandez who is she says she's curious about number 3, 4, and 5.
You have questions about the quest hook questions. Fair enough. All right. Well, we will go ahead and jump into the tackling the questions. We will go ahead and pop on the first question, what we call the "Who are you?" Question 1. Who are you? Dun, dun, dun. And I warned you this was going to be cheesy. I apologize. Actually, no, I don't apologize. You had been warned about it. Okay, who are you? Now, there is a whole bunch of listing stuff that you can do with who are you. Most importantly, the thing you have to realize with that who are you is even coming up with a basic name or an identifier for the character. It's the dude with the white hair sitting in the corner. While that does not give you a name for the character to use, it does give some sort of a descriptor or an identifier for your PCs to kind of grasp onto. If you do have an NPC that you want to make a more memorable person, one that it's going to stick out in the names or stick out in the player's mind, giving them a name is always going to be a good thing. And I have something for you guys. Maybe just a minute here. I'm going to jump out of my presentation because on my notes here, like a good DM, I have another, come on, there we go. I have another link for chat.
And I have used this link before, actually. I've used a number of the tools that may be similar to this. Tell us about this, John. What do we got here?
This is really simple. This is the fantasynamesgenerators.com. The note that he's putting in that he's going to be putting into chat is where I go if I'm looking to get some fantasy names generated really quickly and I don't have anything off the top of my head. Because sometimes coming up with names other than Bob, Henry, and Joe tend to make my brain hurt a little bit. So you can cycle it through gender, you can cycle it through classes or through races, and it gives you an idea of some of the of a good selection of names. It's one I use quite often. So my suggestion, and it's free service, feel free to take a look at it and use it when you want. Going back to share screen, boom, boom, and presentate. Yay! Now, along with some of this information about doing your fantasy names, especially since it's going to be a physical look, you want to give them something identifiable. Giving them a gender is not always applicable because it's maybe not something that they can tell just by looking. But giving them, especially with the variety of fantasy races, the variety of physicalities, then giving them at least a race descriptor. And we're talking race descriptor as dwarf, elf, orc type race descriptor. We'll give them, again, something visually stunning for them to catch on to. Now, if this is going to be a character that rather than them just having a visual eye candy, but it's somebody they're going to be interacting, giving them a gender, again, if applicable. Not all genders will be applicable, and not every time giving someone a defined gender. Sometimes there is no defined gender. But if it's going to be somebody they're going to be out with, giving them possibly a title as well, like the owner of the shop or the prince of the land or something, while it is not vital, and we'll also get more into that in the what are you doing title, but it will also help round out the idea of the character. And all of this can be written down on one line, like this is Tronomin. He is the chief of the clan Steel Sheath. He is a dwarf. He is a male. And there you go. You have a basic idea. And from there, you want to give them an idea of some physical appearance. And again, you want to give it something to reach out. If they're going to be a dwarf, you want to say, hey, what color's their hair? Do they have a beard? If they're going to be somebody you're going to interact more with, come up with a nice little, like, oh, he's going to wear a patch or have a scar over an eye, or he has mutton chops but no beard. Give them something notable, something that's going to make them stick out. And of course, you also have a couple of other subcategories for that. Again, and these are if you want to go even more in depth, because for the basic 5 questions, the name and a little bit of a descriptor is all you need. But if these are going to be characters you're going to work with, take the time to go out a little bit more and give them a couple of personality quirks. For example, and I have more things for you. That's not what I wanted to do. Actually, it is what I wanted to do. Give me just a moment. We have, you guys are being so patient with me. I appreciate it.
Oh, no, you're not reading the chat. Like, people are furious right now because you keep jumping back and forth.
Uh-huh.
I'm kidding. There's a lot of action in chat, actually. Let me go ahead while you're doing that. We had a really cool comment from a Michelle Voss or Vose. Forgive me if I mispronounced your name. She says what she uses for character names is just jumbling up words like anagrams. Specifically, she said to be very weary of a NPC named Milvy, which is just the words "I'm evil" mixed up and twisted.
That is a wonderful thing. And,
right.
and using anagrams for words, using reversed words like that, and also using cognates or words from other languages are wonderful ways to come up with ideas for NPCs, especially if they are going to be of some notorious reputation later on, and good players will actually sit and analyze the names. I don't know how many NPCs I've sat and go, okay, why does this name look weird? What am I going to do? And I reverse it, or I put it into a translator. I'm going, we need to be worried about that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, admittedly, I use Translator, Google Translator, and I'll just drop in a word that describes the character and find a different language and a word in a different language that kind
Mhm.
of appeals to me or whatever. I've let a couple of my players know about that, so I wonder how many times they meet a new character, drop in and see, oh my gosh, this guy's name is Pig Vomit. We really have to stay away from him.
Yeah. Now, the links that I provided for you in chat, Darsh, we've got a list of 500 character quirks and traits,
Great.
and we have got 2 random character trait generator links as well. And they may be a little jumbled, but those I swear to you, those are 3 separate links.
Here they come, guys. Oh, I think I messed one up, but we'll get that.
And I swear to you guys, in that listing, there are 3 separate links there. So
Yep, we got them. Character quirks.
and it's just 3 different sets of character quirk generators.
Yep.
Now I've used the quirk generation before. The list of 500 quirks I looked up just for you guys, just in case. But after doing that, if you're going to have a character that is going to be more interacted with, basically more than just a background random person, then you want to give them a little bit more depth when you get a chance to. You want to work with them and get some a different way of speaking, or the same way of speaking, but kind of, again, pull it out. And if you're like me and you're the type of person that likes to do voices with their characters, again, it is not a requirement ever, but it just depends on what your peculiarity as a DM is. Then you may want to think about giving them a different voice or an accent. For example, in my worlds, just my generalized worlds, and I realize this is kind of a passe thing but all of my dwarfs tend to be of a Scotch accent. And it's just in general, and I know mine's not fully Scotch, it's kind of a Celtic, but it's just a generalized idea of how my voices work. So any dwarf that I come across, if you hear them speaking a Scotch accent, you know they're part of the regular thing. If you meet a dwarf and that dwarf has a different way of speaking or something, you know there's something odd or unique about them because they're out of the ordinary. Again, it's just an idea from my side. And that's just some of the things that I use when I do my NPC lists, because I have pages and pages of answering those 5 questions. And then when I find one I like, I will circle it and I will give them their own piece of paper that I will go ahead and start filling out with race and gender and title and physical appearance and personality quirks, and kind of making that sheet a bit bigger for them. I don't even worry about giving them stats unless they're going to be combat ready for them, but I will make notes on a separate sheet if it's someone that the characters are going to be running into time and time again. Alrighty, well, that is everything that I have for the Who Are You? So if you guys have any comments or any questions for me on that particular thing, we'll go ahead and pause here really quick, and we'll go ahead and open up the floor for Rich to read some comments, or if you guys have questions, we'll try to answer them.
Yeah, we'll give everybody a few seconds because we are on a delay. There aren't any questions exactly specifically at the moment, but there is a lot of chatter going on in the comments. So people are loving the content, particularly the links that we put up, so people know there's some great tools to use. We've got some brand new DMs in the chat that are checking this out and getting some early advice from you, so that's really awesome.
Oh, wonderful.
I personally want to ask you, and I'm literally putting you on the spot here in front of our live audience at the moment, with your wonderful demonstration now of a Scottish accent. Do you think maybe at another time you'd be interested in doing a video similar to this, or a live stream similar to this, to talk about dialects or different ways of speaking for character voices and such?
I can try. I would be happy.
We just roped him in. It's going to happen, guys. I'm going to make sure it happens.
Oh,
I've got him by the fingernails now. I'm just going to pull a little bit harder. We'll get him there.
I would be more than happy to try anything you need me to do. If I have the ability to, I am happy to at least attempt.
Somebody's asking, or actually mentioned, Hero Lab. Is that something you've ever heard of?
Yeah, Hero
Okay.
Lab. Yeah, I have heard a little bit of it. Let me see here.
Seems like a rather interesting generator. She describes it as though it's, kind of complicated, but at the same time very, very useful. And by complicated, I mean like it's very intricate, I should say.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely something I'll look into because I don't think I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, we've got somebody who says that they're currently only using a New Jersey accent and a high pitched voice.
Fair enough. Fair
that's
enough.
that's what she does to make her characters different. At least she's got those two. That's a great start. That is definitely a great start.
It is a wonderful thing. And even without using any type of accents, voice modulation is a huge way that it can differentiate.
Mhm.
Because from my point, I mean, just speaking to me normally, this is my normal talking voice.
Can you believe it,
However,
guys? This is how he normally talks. Like
it's
this.
weird. However, when I'm actually at work, because amusingly enough, I'm in my office right now, so I work from home. When I'm doing my when I'm actually doing my work voice, my voice becomes a bit softer, and I don't stutter as much. And thank you for calling Spectrum Business. My name is John, who I have the pleasure of speaking with today. It's a completely different idea of a person, and if I just pitch my voice down just a little bit, you feel almost that I'm a bigger person, that I have a more deeper voice, that I have either a more authoritative feeling, that I have a larger frame or a taller personage. And if you up your voice just a little bit and slow down just some, you become a tad more scholarly and you get the idea of being a tad more wispy. And if you knock it up even higher, then you're looking at someone of a small stature like a halfling or a gnome or something to that effect. So you can actually give, just by pitching your voice up or down, some basic ideas of changes and how you can have an appearance of a character just by the sound of their voice.
That is awesome. So that is a great teaser to what you can see at our next live video where John talks all about a 90-minute episode of just talking about character voices.
Now.
Don't worry, I'll help out with that because I actually recently enrolled in a dialect course from the Upright Citizens Brigade. No, actually, this one is Second City. So it's a Second City course on dialect training.
Give them a little bit of information on both what Upright Citizens and Second City is for those that don't know.
Yeah, if you don't know, UCB and Second City, they're both improv groups. They're very well renowned. If you've ever seen Saturday Night Live or heard of it, then you have seen members, alma mater alumni of both of those troops. UCB, they produced, well, actually it was founded by Amy Pollard and Tina Fey. So, powerhouses in the comedy world. And then Second City, they produced Bill Murray, Gilda Radner, John Belushi. The list goes on and on and on. Chris Farley, all those guys.
Oh, yeah.
Came from Second City. Yeah.
The Second City was the housing for a lot of the original Ready for Prime Time players. And they actually had their own television series in Canada, the Second City Television.
Yeah. Yeah, which is not terrible considering it's Canadian. Just kidding. I'm kidding. I love Canadians.
It was hilarious.
It was great. It was a really great show.
Fair enough. All right. Is there any other questions in chat?
No, it's some really great feedback, and everyone's, probably already, there's a lot of going back and forth in chat. So people are definitely interacting with each other here, which is awesome. Some more tips for working on dialect training. You have one of your players in here that says you're pretty awesome DM. That's Ellen, who I know Ellen very well. Hi, Ellen. Good to see you.
Hi, Ellen. All right, wonderful. Well, thank you guys for so much interest. How many people we got watching?
We got just over a dozen right now. We got 15 at the moment.
Nice, wonderful.
Yeah, not bad for our first Facebook Live
not bad
streaming workshop. Yeah,
wonderful. All righty, cool. Let's go ahead and jump to our next.
Keep on rolling
thing here. The next question is, what do you do? And it's a very, very simple thing. There are several different interpretations of that, but some of the things that we have underneath the listings for what do you do is basically the job and profession. For example, let's say you're walking into a shop and you see an elf behind the counter. You can tell just by the way he's handling the money and talking to customers that he works there. So his job or his profession would probably be either till monkey, for lack of a better term, because who here hasn't been a till monkey? I know I've worked retail myself many times, or possibly even the shop owner. And that would be a very, very easy way to describe, oh, well, my name is Elfie McElferson. I'm the owner of this, the owner of this shop. There's his job and profession. Now, when talking about characters like that, you cannot necessarily always, even just by casually viewing them, get an idea of what their job or their position is. However, you can take a look at what they're doing to discern that. So for their duties, for example, if you walk in and you see, let's say Elfie McElferson is not behind the counter, but is simply sitting outside and sweeping the floor. By his duties, you can say possibly he's working janitorial. He is he could just be an apprentice there, but he has something to do with the location. And again, you can infer that by what duties they are doing. And rather than what their job is, it's literally what they're doing at that particular time. Now, I did mention that title would come back to us for what do you do, and it does come here because if you get a title from someone, just you can infer from that title what some of the duties or some of the profession is for the persons. Like Prince of the Realm kind of carries a very large weight for a title, and it kind of infers a lot of different functions. But owner of shop, again, you get a large idea of kind of the stuff they do. If they go, hi, my name is such and such, I just work here. The way they gave themselves that title shows they don't have very much to do, or they don't have very much authority. That, or just the wordage, the verbiage that they use, they're not very happy or very enthused about what they're doing. So it's all about context. It's all about inference. It's all about watching what that particular NPC is doing. And again, when you're creating these characters, you don't have to drop a lot of thought and background into what it is. But if you want to give them a more generalized idea, show rather than tell. Have the NPC doing something and let the characters infer from what they're doing what they do. I know it's a bit of a word jumble for that, but I think you understand what I mean. From what their actions are, infer what their profession or what their job is. What do you think, Darsh?
I think it's a hot take when you talk about how they feel about the job that they're doing, and showing that, because then you get a little bit more into, I'm assuming, what you're going to talk about in the next few slides about what this person has in their life that motivates them, what they're driven by, their passions, what their problems, just by how they react or behave while they're doing their job. And then also, I would definitely encourage any new DMs or anyone that has a similar issue to what I have, where everyone feels a little bit of imposter syndrome. And when you're a DM, you're playing multiple different people. Well, you may not know how to put shoes on a horse. And that's okay. You can still play a farrier. You can still play a blacksmith, and not know all the special details about that. What I've taken in some cases is research a little bit about that, to find out a little bit more about what that's like, so I can never ever use that information in game, because players don't really care about that. But yes, I mean, it's just, one little piece that I would just tag onto that is, don't get too wrapped up in the details. Just take this information that John's given and apply the base, and then work from there. Let it grow on its own.
And I'm not saying that you can't. I'm not saying that if you really want to go into depth into what the stable hand knows and does, go for it. Have some fun with it. But if it's not something you're going to use, then you don't have to worry about it. Again, if you want to, have fun with it. That's completely fine. Make that stable boy the most interesting character in your universe. But it is not a requirement. And if you just want to go, hey, this is George, he works in a stable, he likes shoeing horses, then George the stable boy shoes horses. There you go. And you've got a basic NPC with a basic job. And it maybe not be anybody you'll ever talk to again, but at least you have it written down, and they'll be like, oh, I liked that stable boy. Let's go back and see him. And you'll be like, as you look back in your notes and you see, oh, look, I created an NPC for George. There he is. Nice. And they say, I want to talk with George some more. Okay, let's flesh him out a little bit so they have something to talk with about. But having that basic listing is going to definitely help, especially if you have a large world. If you're doing a lot of world building, you're going to be able to have a lot of people to put in for it. All right. The actual what do you do is a fairly short slide because it is fairly easy. But if you guys have any questions or have any comments about that particular one, feel free to ask, and we're happy to answer, happy to give opinions on it. We'll take a few moments here and give me a breather while I drink some water.
I'm curious, and this is not intended to send you on a different tangent, but I'm just curious, how often do you think you create NPCs that are there more so just for environment purposes that don't need to be there to provide information? They're just there as part of a scene that you're describing.
At least once a session, if not more.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Yeah. So
For
basically all the time.
Yeah, for example, I was doing a session with one of the groups that I play with this past Friday. One of my players is actually in chat, and there was a barroom scene where a new NPC was introduced. The only two people NPC wise the only person NPC wise they actually knew was the bartender. The NPC that they met was a brand new NPC, but I actually had information about the 4 or 5 other folks that were there sitting in the bar just in case they happened to want to interact with any of them or ask questions about them. I had all that information there.
We do have a question. Somebody's asking, Jenny Jacobs wants to know. I remember Jenny. She was in our class. Hi, Jenny. Good to see you. What do you recommend as far as ways to organize your PCs? Do you use like a spreadsheet? Do you just have multiple pages in a like a composite notebook? Something like that.
Composition.
That's the word I'm looking for. Yes, that's the one. Yes, composition notebook.
To answer the question, yes. When I have a larger scale campaign that has been going on for quite a while, I will start keeping spreadsheets. Depending on the region, I'll actually have 3 or 4 different tabs, and they will have the answers to the 5 questions. And these will be listings of those answers to the 5 questions per region. And then I'll have a 4th or 5th or 6th tab that will have specific information on NPCs that the characters have either I have deemed important or the characters going, I like Billy the Goblin. Let's talk more about Billy the Goblin. So I go, crap, let's flesh out Billy the Goblin. And then when I'm doing 1 shots or 2 or 3 shots or not doing huge things, I have small notebooks that I keep. For example, I will go to back to school at the very end of the back to school things, and I will purchase all of the cheap notebooks and composition books. I have them stashed all over my office here. And then when I need something, I will sit there and it's like, okay, you are my new NPC stuff for this campaign. Let's write some basic NPC lists, and I'll have them to use.
Yeah, September is a great month to go shopping for office supplies.
Yeah,
all the schools are back in session usually by then. They're just trying to get stuff off their shelf, so snatch up as much as you can. Not a question so much, but a great comment from our friend Michelle, which is something that I talk a lot about in our initiative roles workshops, and I know you probably have already, if not will be touching on it a little bit later, as far as personality of your NPCs, kind of channeling somebody else, whether it's somebody in your personal life or a celebrity you may know, or some kind of icon. And I do that for voices as well. Sean Connery is in like every single one of my campaigns somewhere.
Well, of course,
just because it's a great voice to use. Yeah, it's
and everybody who tries can have a wonderful Sean Connery voice if they put their mind and tongues to it.
Yes, exactly. He could be a daft king. He could also be the stable boy who's 69 years old and he just enjoys working in the stable.
Or if you're a fan of Diablo, in almost every one of my campaigns, I have an old man character who sounds like Cain the Elder. Stay a while and listen. Every campaign has at least one person that sounds like Cain the Elder because he's my favorite old man character. Yeah. But so anyway, what was the question they were having?
Wasn't a question. It was really she was just mentioning that it's a great way to kind of flesh out your characters is thinking of somebody that personally or a celebrity, somebody whose personality you're already familiar with, and you just kind of channel that energy into that NPC. I do that all the time.
As do I. It's a wonderful idea. I mean, take, for example, looking at, let's do a famous animator like Matt Groening. We know that he created The Simpsons on the fly because he was originally going to be sitting down and possibly pitching a cartoon for his comic strip Life is Hell or Life in Hell, and didn't want to get that taken away from him. So he went ahead and made The Simpsons and pitched them, and he wrote their personalities based on his family members. So
ain't that something? I did not know that.
Exact same thing. And it's a wonderful stuff because people have ready-made personalities to use and kind of to use and abuse at your leisure, to use the terminology for it. And then, of course, you can sit there and take some of those quirks and flip them and change them and Rubik's Cube them together into more interesting creations from there.
One of the first exercises we do in our weekly workshops is primarily geared to introduce people to the fact that even the most mundane and simple characteristics or personality traits that you might have are really quite interesting. So even grabbing your family members, I mean, your brother or your mom or your dad or whoever may be like the most boring person in the world in your life, but that may be exactly what makes them very interesting to the 5 to 6 people that are sitting in front of you, playing the game with you.
Exactly. All right. Do we have any other questions or any other comments?
No, just some compliments on our Sean Connery accents.
Well, wonderful. And I must compliment. I like your Sean Connery as well.
Well, thank you, sir.
Do you know? Do you know that one day Sean was actually working and doing some home improvements in his house, and he took a board and he actually nailed it to the wall and put some books onto it, so it was a nice little holder for them. And then one day something happened while he was underneath that piece of board, and one of the board nails fell out, and the piece of wood fell down, and the books fell on his head. And he looked up. He was very upset and says, "I guess I can only blame myself."
You're a jerk. I can't believe you just dropped a terrible Sean Connery dad joke. That was great.
All right, before we get mobbed by bad jokes and booze, let's skip on to the next slide. All right, as you can see, I have a wonderful little genie here. And the question for you guys is, what do you want? Now, this gives an idea of the possibilities of what the desires of this NPC is going to be. This is where you can actually start dropping in the ideas for quest hooks, depending on how major it is. Now, depending on what characters you're talking about and how much oomph you want in there, this can be as simple as, what's the character want? You're annoying me. I want you to get the hell out of my shop. That is what a character wants. That's an immediate goal for them. They can be hungry. It's like, well, I want to take a break. I want a sandwich. That's what they want. That's a goal. However, it can also be something a bit more. It's like, hey, my business is failing and I need a way to help save it. Or my sister just got kidnapped by a bunch of orcs. I don't want her to be kidnapped. I want her to be saved. Either that, or I am making a wondrous weapon, but I can't because I lack a particular type of, or I need to get a particular type of ore to finish the weapon. All of those can be goals, whether they are life goals in general, like I want to get married, I want to have children, I want to become a member of parliament or president of the United States, whatever you want to say. That is a life goal. Business goal, I want to open and franchise my particular my particular bow shop. Business goals, I want to raise revenue in my shop. Relationship goals, I want to get married. I want to have children. Like I said, I want to meet and become friends with somebody in the town, or I have a secret crush. All of those can be considered in the what do you want category. Even the smallest thing, like I said, of, hey, I don't like you, get out of my shop. The character wants something, and that's what they wish. That's what they desire. It's almost like thinking about the television show Lucifer. When he kind of looks at you and smiles, so what is it that you desire? You're asking the NPC, you're kind of doing that to that character as you're looking there, and you're immediately going, so what is it you desire, NPC? What do you want? What are your motivations? And that's that's the thing. It's their motivation. When you're sitting down and you see the bad jokes about actors and directors, you have to go, what's my motivation? That's basically what the NPC is looking at you going, okay, Skyfather, you have created me. What do I want? What is my motivation? And you go, I don't know. What do you want to do? Sometimes you have to talk with your NPCs. Who here as a DM has not had an internal conversation with one of their characters at least where they are talking back with you? God knows I have multiple times.
And there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
Unless they start yelling back at you.
Again, how often does that happen? more often than I'd like to
Yeah,
talk
exactly.
about. Yeah. And I know my friends out there that are authors have had conversations with their characters at the same time where their characters are running away with their stories.
Sure.
I know several authors in my life that have done such a thing. And wonderfully enough, these NPC guidelines, these questions, are wonderful for creating characters in books as well, because it gives you a good way to start off. Because I know a lot of folks that do writing, and when I very rarely put pen to paper for writing, when I have characters I'm dealing with, even when I'm writing scenarios for Dungeons and Dragons, I'll use the same thing for creating characters in those stories as well, because it helps make it easier for it. Not only this, but dropping these particular type of goals, these are the beginning of your quest hooks. If these characters are going to be someone that's going to give a task or someone that is going to be more important to the characters, it is a way for those characters to actually have something that they can ask the player for later on. It is a definite way to put a desire and a want in there for the players to help fulfill later. It's a good way to start seeding your quest hooks. And also a way to start seeding your MacGuffins. Now, are you familiar with the term MacGuffin, Rich?
Yes.
Yes. For those that are not, the MacGuffin is a generalized terminology for any item that has to be got. For example, in Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Ark of the Covenant was the MacGuffin. That's what everybody was after. All right. Well, we have covered basic things for what do you want. Rich, do you have any comments, questions, or concerns from you, first of all?
I do, and I definitely want to make sure I invite everyone who is in the chat. If you have questions on this particular question, or if that makes sense, if you have a question about this particular topic of discussion we're at right now, by all means, drop them in the chat. We'll ask John directly. I definitely want to point out that this is a really, really important part of your NPC creation. One that I think I might struggle with a little bit because I'm usually more focused on what the needs of the NPC are in the story and not much thinking about like getting inside the NPC's head. By doing this, what it does, it allows you to figure out how an NPC would react to certain scenarios, or even how they interact in a dialogue with your players. Usually, I am so focused on getting the information that I want them to have out there that I do a poor job of portraying the NPC, I think, and makes them kind of bland and easily forgettable because I'm just trying to feed them information instead of playing a real person. This is what really makes a person come to life: is what are their life goals, their business goals, what are their ambitions, what do they want out of life? This is what really makes people unique. I think this is I think really, really important. We do have some questions.
Okay.
Let's see here. Ellen wants to know, do you feel like it's a requirement for a new player to have more of these questions fleshed out for their character as well? And if not, do you build further and with specific opportunities for the players to do so? She said she's got a lot of new players. She's struggling with helping them answer the what do you want questions.
Well, the wonderful thing about what do you want is it is such a large question, and it can be knocked down to minutia fairly easily. My suggestion, especially with new players, and because this can be used to help build PCs as well, because answering those 5 questions can start your player character on their quest to be able to become a more fleshed out person. My suggestion, again, especially with new players, is okay, well, kind of tie it into your profession. You chose your profession, your class, for a reason. What was that reason? Why did you choose that? And they'll usually say, well, my parents asked me to do it, or I'm off to avenging. Okay, wonderful. What are you avenging? Why are you doing that? And asking those questions will kind of give way into them telling a little bit of their backstory, which will come with some of their goals they want to do. So it'll give an idea of what they want. If it's very simple, like you're Luke Skywalker and you want to go to Tashi Station for a power converter, it's simple, but it works. It's a start. And that's all we look for when dealing with NPCs or even player characters, is just that start. Once you have that start, it becomes a very, very positively slippery slope into more detailed goals. Now, I don't think I fully answered that. Give me just a moment. And yes, I do tend to try to build, again, dealing with PCs for a second, I do tend to build more opportunities to try to give them more ideas of goals. Once
Mhm.
they've given me a basic idea of where they want to go with character, what goal they have, I definitely try to target some of the role play and some of the encounters to kind of flesh out what they want. And again, specifically, we're talking about new players. Want to give them a positive experience and want to give them the idea of the world is building with them. Hopefully that answer your question fair enough. Well
I
enough.
think it certainly did. Yeah, absolutely. Um, I would also point out for dungeon masters and players, when you establish the what you want, um, it really makes it easier to play those characters. Because I mean, if you can get inside that PC or NPC's head and understand their motivations, then you know exactly how they're going to act and react and behave in every scenario. Sometimes as players, I think, and I see this a lot with players in my group as well, where they have a sense of what they want out of the game as a player, and some of them may struggle a little bit with playing as an actual person living in this world because they just want to get to the next battle scene or something like that, or they want to get the next cool treasure, which is great. Fully respect that. I think the more that they play, and the people I'm specifically mentioning are they're kind of new, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. They definitely don't have the 30 years experience that you have, but I know I
Right.
kind of struggle with that a little bit too. Because I'm fighting my own urges to, get to what I think is the most exciting next part of the game. Let's hurry up and skip past what I think is this boring stuff and not realizing that I'm denying myself certain opportunities in role playing by not putting myself, like absorbing myself into the character, and really fleshing them out based on their motivations. I think is
Yeah.
really important and crucial to get a really fulfilling role playing experience out of the game. Just my take on it, and I would invite anybody who may struggle with that a little bit to try it. You understand the motivations and really play out those motivations. Having said that about some players, and it's not to speak badly about the people in my group. I love each and every single one of them. And I have one or two or three guys in the group that do this very well to the point that it's almost disruptive to my plans as a DM. But of course, I invite that as well. But sometimes I might set up a certain encounter, or I think I know exactly what needs to happen for the next chapter or the next page of this adventure to get turned. And because they understand their character is thinking, no way in heck am I going to go there because I got this other thing I got to do. And sometimes that other thing I got to do is simply, I got to keep myself alive. So I'm not going to rush into battle, which is super smart of of a player to do that, because that is what a person would do when they're faced with an army of orcs in front of them or something. They may not rush into battle so easily. So it definitely lends itself for a more interesting storytelling opportunity, I think, when you really submerge yourself into a character's motivations.
Agreed.
One of the players I'm talking about is in the group right now. He's apologizing. You don't need to apologize, sir. Trust me. It makes the game more fun, not just for you, but for me too. Trust me.
Fair enough. Are there any other questions in the chat before we move on?
Let's see. Okay, motivations for PCs. Let's see. Motivation for PCs to answer these questions and develop more character.
I have one for that.
Yeah. Okay.
To be interesting, taking an idea off of some of the modern day mobile games that we like to affectionately refer to as freemium games. They will basically let you play, and then is like, oh, well, if you want to play faster, here, pay for that. They actually do get you in a little involved. They're like, hey, we want you to do something. We want you to share this game. If you share this game, we'll give you in-game currency. If you link to our Discord, we're going to give you in-game currency. One thing that I do is in my world, and this is just the way that John and the Night Owl Gaming Society, which I'll cover in a few moments, does things, is I give out what's called karma points. They're not XP. They are not any type of leveling up, but it's a player incentive. And again, this is what works for me. I give them out for excellent role playing. I give them out for cracking the DM up because I enjoy having a fun game, and they're usable to rather than let's use fifth edition for example. You know, you can get advantage or disadvantage or inspiration on checks. A karma point will actually allow you to re-roll a full roll, and if it's advantage, you can roll both of the things. If it's disadvantage, you can re-roll both of the things. If you want to do something fairly cinematically epic in the system, and it will usually take 3 or 4 rolls to do that, rather than do that, I'll have you spend 3 or 4 karma points if you have them, and you'll tell me how you want it to go through. And for good role playing, I also suggest something that I do. I will sit down with my PCs if they're having problems. I'll have them fill out the 5 questions. I'll have them really sit and think about stuff. And once they've done that, congratulations, here, you did well. Here's a karma point for your troubles. It's a way to motivate them and incentivize them with it. And again, it's worked for me. It may not work for you, and your mileage may vary, but it's just something that I found useful.
This is a hot take. I almost feel like it should replace inspiration. Do you still also use inspiration points?
Occasionally.
Okay.
But my karma points will follow me no matter what game system I'm playing in, because it's more of a me thing rather than just a system thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. It definitely incentivizes players to play the game a little bit more expertly, I guess I should say.
Yeah, and in my 3.5 game system that I played long ago, I still have somewhere in my hard drive a price list, because I allowed them after a session to end, if they were able to collect a certain amount of karma points, they could purchase. Like, I want to take 100 karma points and I want to buy a level, or I would like to take an extra.
That's cool.
Because not only that, but when they leveled up, I'd let them roll a d6 and they would get an extra amount of karma points, because some people didn't enjoy the role playing as much, but I didn't want to eliminate them from the system. So every time they'd level up, they'd get a random amount of karma points to be able to use. And some people would save up a bunch. I even had it to, if you saved up to 10,000 karma points, congratulations, you bought yourself an extra life. If it happens and you die, the gods take pity on you and you're resurrected at full health. Congratulations, give me that karma back.
Yeah, this is great.
It is a great way. Again, just for me, it incentivizes that role play.
Yeah. There's, in my personal opinion, I think there's a flaw in the XP system per player's handbook, in that you just essentially get points for killing monsters. At least that's basically the idea. And of course, DMs have multiple different avenues for divvying up other XP points. I play for Dungeon Master, and he gives us the XP points based on, monsters that were slayed, but he also adds a modifier for, and I don't even know what the things are that he checks off, but he's got a list of, I believe, 5 different things that he checks off during the session for each of us players, and we get a 5% additional bonus for each one of those things that gets checked off. So we could get 1.25 times what our experience points were for that game. And that's a really, really fun way to do it, because and again, I don't know what all is on that list. I have a pretty good idea. But even still, instead of the karma points, he incentivizes role play. He incentivizes, just staying focused and, maintaining interaction at the table and stuff like that. I don't really know, because I haven't looked into it that much, because I don't use XP at all. I just simply use Milestone for my games.
Yeah.
But this is a really great way, particularly because you're talking about using them for leveling up. This is a really great way for people to, play in a role-playing game that is not always going to be combat driven, which I think is super smart. I love that.
Fair enough. All right. Well, we got a little bit off topic for that one, but that's completely fine. Anything else in the chat?
No, someone else is still mentioning Cortex. We mentioned that earlier, right?
No.
Okay, I just read that somewhere earlier in the comments, actually. So she's talking about something called plot points. And so she says that those can be used to add points to a role or influence a game. So similar. And I imagine that those are rewarded for, similar circumstances. So that's pretty cool. That's a nice hot take.
It's definitely, there is, when I was playing Mutants and Masterminds, which was a Green Ronin production, there were points called fiat points. If a GM had to go in and do something against the character basically had to railroad something, the players were automatically given a GM fiat point, and they could turn that fiat point in as a plot point to do something epic, to add to a roll, to re-roll something. So that's because my games are always, or I try to make them very cinematic. That is why I introduced the karma point system, because I was like, I want you guys to have as much fun. Giving you these karma points allow you to creatively break the system as long as you have enough good karma to pop back out to the universe. Alrighty, shall we move on to the next question? Can you hear me?
Yes, we are ready.
Wonderful. Okay, wonderful. All right, so we have got, what is your problem? Which I just love the way I've phrased this one. It's also traditionally known as what stands in your way. This is part 2 of the plot hook, because these last 3 questions, 3, 4, and 5, I call the plot hook questions. What stands in your way? If you need to go get something, possibly you can't do it because there's ruffians or bandits or monsters or dragons or what have you that are guarding or in the area that could be stopping you from doing it. What you may need is fairly scarce, and you don't know exactly where it's located. You need somebody to help you because you don't have that much help to do. Scarcity of labor. You don't know the area very well. You have no knowledge of it, or the terrain is especially troublesome. It's especially rough or dangerous, and it's not something that you as a NPC, since we're talking about it in the first person now, would want to take on. Those are a whole bunch of different problems. It could also be like you want to have a love letter to the princess, but you're a peasant and she's royalty and they're not going to let you in. How's that going to do? Or I'm too shy to talk to this person. Would you talk to them for me? That is another plot hook. It's basically what stands in your way. What stops the NPC from achieving whatever their goal is that we've had in question 3. For example, with Elfie McElferson, doesn't want you in his thing. What's stopping him from getting you out of the door? You're here. He doesn't want you here. What's stopping him from making you leave? There is a small question hook. Maybe it's because, well, I got to sell you something first. Fine, here, buy something. There you go. That's what stands in his way. What's stopping him? Again, it's a great way to start dusting in your quest hooks. It is a great way to start putting in some storyline even, because what is standing in their way can lead from a very, very small just notion like you might have for NPC dialogue to an epic quest that lasts 8 sessions just from that simple interaction. And if you're having a large storyline you're wanting, dusting these issues throughout some of the NPCs they're gonna connect to, they're gonna react to, is a great way to help the storyline along. Thoughts, questions?
So this is the one that I really wanted to dive into a little bit more, because this is something that I don't ask myself often enough. But it's a great opportunity here, I think, because it's a piggyback off of the motivation. And I think anybody that studies character creation for the sake of storytelling, there's a number of great books out there on how to be a writer. When it comes to the sections on character, this is something that comes up a lot, but I feel like I always kind of overlook it because I'm more so interested about what gets us to the end of the story, not the path in between.
Yeah.
But this creates the path in between a lot more interesting. It piggybacks off of question 3, like I said. What do you think are some ways to, I guess what I'm curious about is, if you not initially driven to instinctually answer this question, do you sometimes create a problem that you hadn't considered before? Or is this something that's always, in your character creation from the very beginning, is like one of the first things that you think about?
Well, being that I've doing this particular set of so long, it's become an automatic app in my brain. Oh,
yeah, so it's
app.
instinctual.
All 5 questions are there, and I go, okay, doom, 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 doom. It's become an automatic reflex for me. I can't really think about my creation without it, because it's become so pat for me. Every good story, and even if it's a simple fable, for example, like the Scorpion and the Frog, it's a simple Aesop's fable, but there's conflict. Every good story has some sort of conflict in it. And in a sense, that is what's standing in the way, is some sort of conflict, some sort of problem. And that is the very base of what we're looking at, is what is the problem? What is the mental malfunction? What is the bind? What's the impetus for adventure?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess more specifically, I'm curious about, if, say, I'm working on a character, I know who they are, I know what they do, I know their motivation. When I get to this part, I'm thinking he doesn't have any problems. He's always able to go to work, get his job done. Do you ever think about? Are you ever inspired, I guess, to create a problem
Oh
for
yeah.
a character that didn't exist previously?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Because I'm a DM, I'm an author, and it's my
Mm-hmm.
job to make my characters' lives hell. Because
And
if you think about it, you as an author, and that's what a DM is just a more interactive
in a
author.
sense, you're right.
Yeah. And I
Absolutely.
will
Sure.
always give honor and praise to the authors that can sit down and write the stories like that, because I find that hard. I can't do that. It's not something I'm well at. So I'm impressed by their abilities. But it is our jobs as these creators to kind of open our minds into a nice, wonderful, pristine world, and then sow chaos into it. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, the world was wonderful until the dark magician came in. They're like, and the world's like, what the hell did we do to you? You're coming down. So yeah, I'm happy. I sit down and look at these nice little pristine lives and create problems for them.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I also look at the idea for the question 3 of what their motivation is. Question 4, well, they don't have any problems. Nothing stopping them. Okay, but what's their motivation? What could stop them? What could
Yeah.
come in the way of stopping their motivation?
Cool. So here's another question. Have you ever yourself, or would you suggest making a character who is more or less mentally inept as far as what their problem is? Like, they don't understand what their problems are.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you feel like that makes a more interesting character?
It definitely it makes it more interesting for the PCs to interact with, because once the PCs, because also these 5 questions are sometimes questions that the player characters have to ask of themselves when interacting with an NPC. Well, who is this guy? Well, what does he do? Well, what does he want? And what's stopping him? Sometimes that information will be great to help the plot along, because I know player characters that will ask these questions kind of mentally or kind of in the investigation phase of something without even realizing it.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful when you put a character in them that it is not very easy to determine what those 5 questions are, watching them trying to creative problem solve around to get the information. Alrighty, now we're going to throw it to chat. Question 4, do you guys have any questions about the what stands in your way question? Excuse me, questions about that topic of conversation. I have said the word question way too much in this live stream.
I mean, that's what we're doing, though. We're asking questions, we're getting answers. It's a lovely, lovely thing. Let's see, while we're waiting for some questions, can you maybe walk us through, knowing that this is sort of an instinctual process for you, just a real quick start from finish, leaving out question 5, of course, what it's like for you when you do a character. Do you start with the who? Do you have a linear way of doing this, or is it just all kind of come together?
Let's say you're walking into town.
Yeah.
Let's say you need a weapon. You come to a blacksmith shop. There's going to be a dwarf behind the counter. He is going to be gray-haired, grizzled. He's missing an eye, but he has very, very large hands and thick wrists. You can show that he's been working on it well. We will call him Stone Ground, because he actually does use a lot of ground stone in his work. So actually you see the metal, it sparkles a little bit with the dull metal on there. It's an interesting thing. His name is Stoneground. He is a blacksmith. He does his stuff well. However, he recently has been making poor quality weapons. He has not had a chance to get out to the quarry to be able to get any of the extra special stone that he uses in his recipes. The reason being is because there have been a band of orcs that have taken over the mines and has stopped anybody from doing it. And he just has not had the manpower to go help out because he's only one man. But you look interested. Would you help him?
That's a beautiful thing. And watching you do that, actually, I'm tempted to say, well, of course, he can do this. He's been doing this since he was a child. But when you stop and think about it, and you're able to reverse engineer what you just did, you mentally just asked yourself all of those questions and answered them. You know, you started with the who or the what. You started with his motivation. You got his problem. We already know what he does for a living the moment we walk into the blacksmith's. This is perfect. Yeah. So if nothing more, that is a great example for anyone who's watching this who has never taken this approach before. Now they understand how easy it is to develop a character on the fly, even with the simple 5-question process. This is great.
Now, what's interesting about Stonegrind is that he may not tell you that he's looking for help, because he's going to sit there. He's a very proud dwarf, and he's going to be sitting there working on his equipment. But if you ask, well, tell me, Master Stonegrind, why is there not so many? I see lots of holes on your display and lots of dust burning. He's going to go, I don't have the ability to make what I want most of the time anymore. Why is that? Well, here, give me one of your weapons. Shut up and give me the damn weapon. Now, see, here on mine, you see the wee little sparkles, and here you don't see the sparkles. That's because your weapon sucks. Mine is made with a special stone that gives it a wee bit of a special enchantment. So why can't you do that? Because I don't have any, you idiot. My supply chain's been broken up. And just, again, having the PCs help you by answering these questions for you, or even having the PCs, just out of curiosity, ask the questions without realizing they're asking the questions, helps you as a DM help develop as you go along if you don't have a good set to begin with.
100%. I don't know if you intentionally did it. We don't have any questions to chat at the moment. I feel like that is a perfect segue into question 5, because now we're talking about, kind of like plot hooks, quest hooks.
Yep. How can the player help? This is your ultimate ending for quest hooks, because 3, 4, and 5 are the 3, 4, and 5 are the quest hook questions. This is how you get the playoff. This is how you get the payoff. This is where they give you the quest. This is how the PCs, and again, not all NPCs are going to be quest givers, but for those that are, 5 is always a wonderful thing. How can the player help? Whether they want you to study information to give the NPC assistance, whether they want you to reconnoiter, which for a lot of folks is a word that most people don't use, to reconnoiter is to go out and gather, to go out and get information, whether they need you to go fetch something, whether they need you to go kill beasties, or whether they need you to go find a particular person and make them unalive, murder, death, kill. Whatever you're talking about here, this is the way for the players to head off to adventure.
I'm so glad you did that.
It just made me happy. I was like, yay, I could do that. Like I told you, this was cheesy 90s animated. I'm sorry. I'm so proud of myself, because the day before yesterday, I didn't know how to do this. Yesterday.
1 hour.
Yeah, it took me about an hour of study to figure it out. But this 5, how can the player help, is the impetus for making sure we have all the information we need to be able to give the quest to the NPC, whether it's a basic fetch question in the town that you're giving for low-level PCs to get them experience and loot, whether this is the next part of a major storyline where the local thieves guild goes, we can't tell you this. However, there is somebody that can, and they give you the information to find the next step of the quest. Regardless of what it is, this is the hook. This is where you put in the bloop, it pops up on your quest locator like you're playing an MMORPG. This is where all the rest of the questions come together. You know who you're talking to, you know what they're doing, you know why they're doing it, you know what's stopping them from doing it, and now how can you help them go back to doing what they're doing?
I feel like, and then again, guys, in the comments, if you have questions about this, by all means, go ahead and post them up. I feel like I know the answer to this question, but it should still be asked. Is this something that is interchangeable with other NPCs? In other words, can the same problem exist, or the same can the same quest be introduced by a different NPC?
Of course.
Yeah.
For example, let's go back to Stonegrind's issue
Mhm.
with the mine being inhabited by the orcs. Um, that mine not only gives his special stone, but that mine also gives ore and other type of things and valuables, not only to some of the jewelers in the area, but some of the other folks that use some of the coal and stuff that's taken from the mine itself. Not only that, but these orcs, they tend to get very hungry very quickly. So they're raiding some of the other outposts in the area, and therefore they're killing folks, they're stealing things, so they become quite a nuisance. So they're over at that particular mine where their camp is. So there's several different quests that can be linked together for that particular end of the quest, just depending on who you talk to.
Right. Yeah. So it could come from Stoneground, the blacksmith. It could come from, Glass Wiper, the bartender. It could come from lots of different people.
There is always ways. There is an actual legitimate medical condition, a psychological condition called apophenia. And it's not something to joke about, and I don't use the term lightly. Apophenia is the psychological issue that a lot of conspiracy theorists will hit with. They look out and they find connections where there are none.
Yeah. Okay. For sure. I definitely suffer from that.
But
Now,
it's also in a more lesser version, one that is not an actual psychological condition. It's been nicknamed the DM disease.
oh, really? Why do you say that?
Because we look at a problem, we look at a storyline, and we start making the connections where ones originally didn't do.
Gosh, I feel attacked right now. You're so right.
I'm attacking myself, but I don't have apophenia, and I am so sorry for those that do. But I do have the DM's disease, and I will take a look at a story, and I'll start drawing connections where ones didn't sit and help working. And having a web like that, showing the community within those groups that are all affected by the problem in general, but in different ways, allows a more dynamic world for the characters that are going to be playing in it.
So do you feel it's something that needs to be overcome, or just sort of embrace it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, again, if you actually have legitimate apophenia, and I'm not trying to play off that, it is an actual psychological condition.
Yeah.
Please try to get help for it, because it can be devastating. But for the DM side of things, and again, I'm not trying to make light of the term apophenia, but the idea of making connections where we're none of this, for a dungeon master, it's a boon. It can sometimes be more than you can handle, but it's a wondrous thing to look at a disparate storyline and start to see little things you can connect. It's a wonderful thing for story runners for cartoon and series. Well, they'll drop little hints here and there, or you may have said something as an off comment during one episode or one session of your campaign that you wrote down, that you'll come back later and it's like, oh, you know what I can do with that? Let's go ahead and turn that in and connect that as a dropped bird seed or a breadcrumb to a trail, and connect that to the big bad, and boom, you're starting to weave your story.
Well, that's interesting. And that brings me to another question, actually, is if you haven't already fleshed out what the following adventure will be, is this an opportunity or does this give you an opportunity to present multiple different plot hooks with different characters, just so you can create a sandbox experience for your players, and that way they can choose their own path?
Which I love sandbox experiences.
Yeah.
Something I talked with one of my consults that I did yesterday with a dear friend. I do DMing and GMing consults. Is I told him about my storyline process, where I take a skeleton. I have a definite start to where their adventure is going to be, and I will eventually give them a definite goal of where they're going to be ending. But how they choose to navigate from head to foot is up to them, and I try to give them as much as a sandbox as I can. So I try to give them multiple plot hooks when I can.
Yeah. Ellen asked a really interesting question. She says, for those that both players and DMs, is there something that you do in particular to prevent yourself from going into DM disease brains, so you don't frustrate your DM to the point of anger? Like as a player, I guess is what she means.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
I don't write very much of my campaigns. I let my players write 90% of my campaigns.
Same. Yeah.
If my players start coming up with an excellent idea or thought pattern, I'll sit and watch how their thoughts. And if it works, if I like it, then I'm going to write it into the campaign. And it's like, you know what? That was very intuitive of you. Congratulations. You figured that out. Here, have a karma point for wonderful, wonderful plot development. And it's weird because I both sit behind the screen and sit out to play. And yeah, it is hard to get your DM brain to shut up.
Sure. I totally agree. When I first started DMing pretty seriously, I took the approach of reading an adventure module and then writing my own. And adventure modules are great if you have players that are on board with that. If you tell them like, we're going to run this module, it's going to start here, it's going to end somewhere you don't know, but I, already figured out where it's going to end and where the big bad evil guy and the big treasure, the big MacGuffin we're going to find, whatever. If everyone's on board for that, that's great. Full transparency with the players in my weekly group, they know that they have full control over the story to a point at which they can choose a different path altogether. And in some cases they have already. With another group that I shouldn't say group, it's just me and my little brother. We do one-on-ones where I DM a game. He's the only player. The last time that we played, he slayed the dragon, and we spent a session talking about, well, where does your character go next? Here's the map of Faerun. You're right here on the Sword Coast. Where would you like to go? You know what this little kid decided he wanted to do? He discovered that in the Monsters Manual, there's actually a description for a Tyrannosaurus Rex. He loves Jurassic Park. It's like one of the things that he's obsessed about. So he's decided he wants to go capture a Tyrannosaurus Rex, bring it back to Phandelvern, and open up his own exotic zoo and resort right there in town so he can charge people to come see his Tyrannosaurus Rex. And I was like, that's a beautiful adventure, sir. We're going to get to work on that.
As the bard sits in the background and plays.
Oh, gosh. Yes. Oh, yes. Everyone would admit that is a terrible idea for an adventure, but at the same time, it is mad genius. So
there is no terrible adventure. Going dinosaur hunting is wonderful.
Only in that, in somebody else's words, there are 5 movies that this is a terrible thing to do, that only bad things will come of it. But then my response is, if it's really that bad, why do we have 5 very entertaining movies about the same thing? So Here we go. So yeah, we're on the final thoughts. If you guys have any more questions, be sure and drop them in the comments as we wrap up. We only got a few minutes left on this.
And knowing us, we'll probably go a little bit over because it's
good chance. Absolutely. And then, if you guys came in late, by all means, you can rewatch this on the Facebook. I do realize that I forgot to set a reminder for myself to record this thing from the very beginning. So, yeah, I know. But I think there may be a way. I'm sure somebody has figured out a way to rip a video from Facebook Live so we can get the full amount or the full content on YouTube channel later. So we'll just figure that out. But nevertheless, yeah, this has been great. We got some people already talking about how much they've enjoyed this. This is awesome. Lots of stuff to tool over. Check out the links in the comments, guys. If you're watching this on the YouTube later, we'll post those in the description so you have all those links. I myself am doing initiative roles, improv training for dungeon masters and players of the games Dungeons and Dragons and other RPGs every week, every Sunday. We're usually booked out a couple weeks, but if you go to the website initiativeroles.com, that's ROLES, initiativeroles.com, you can see our schedule for upcoming workshops. And those have been a blast. We get people from all over the world who get together and we collaborate. We just bounce ideas off each other. We use some very well-known improv exercises in the improv theater world, but they've just been tweaked a little bit so that dungeon masters and players can get a lot more out of it and kind of use it to enhance their own confidence when they're narrating and telling their own story, as well as how to react to those crazy shenanigans that your players always throw at you. More great compliments coming in. People saying this is very helpful. They definitely enjoyed this. So I think we will have to do this again in some shape or form. Yeah, you got
Wonderful.
Final thoughts, John?
Well, I got some final thoughts. First of all, if you guys want to get in contact with either of us, because Initiative Roles is all Darsh's baby, that's his thing. What's a good way to get in contact with you, Darsh?
Well, Facebook right now is the best way. So you're probably currently watching this on the Initiative Roles page. You can always, drop me a private message there, or the initiativeroles.com website. And then you can look me up, Richard Darshwood, on Facebook. I used to friend everybody, but then the world got really, really crazy and strange, politically divisive. And I don't friend everybody because there's a lot of crazies out there I've found in the social media world. But if I know you're a friend of a friend, there's a good chance I might accept you. So you can reach out to me through social media there.
Fair enough. And if you need to get out with me, I do I do DM and GMing consulting, just like Darsh does the improv stuff. I do specifically world building and DM consulting. If you guys want to talk with me and do stuff like that, you can find me, on Facebook, John Cowgell, Cowgell. You can see my little name at the bottom of the screen there.
Mm-hmm. Other side.
Other side?
It's on the other side.
So it's here.
Yeah. Got it.
There, right
I
there.
think. I don't know, actually, because it depends on,
Cowgell.
I don't know. Raise your right hand for us real quick. Okay, so that's accurate. I don't know.
Okay, wonderful. Whatever.
Webcams are difficult.
You can see the spelling of my name. Find me on the old Book of Faces. Also, if you want to contact me via email, just contact Pocket the Fool, Pocket the Fool, all one word, .com, and at gmail.com, Pocket the Fool at gmail.com. Send me an email. I'm happy to sit and chat with you. And soon, in association with my dear friend Rich and with Initiative Roles, I will be starting my own thing. For those that have already played with me before, you are familiar with the term Nog. It is something my mother, before she passed away years ago, helped create with myself, my aunt, my mom, and several of my friends. We called ourselves Night Owl Gamers. We would stay up till the late wee hours of the morning. And who here has not done a long-term play like that, where you stayed up way later than you should when you're playing because the story is just too good, you don't want to let go? Mm-hmm. I'm assuming you've had at least one of those, Darsh.
Oh, totally guilty. Yeah, and gladly so.
So we nicknamed ourselves Night Owl Gamers, and in the years that followed, became a group called the Night Owl Gaming Society, the Nogs. And I have been a very proud Nog for most of my gaming systems lives, and all my players are inducted into the Nogs in a sense. And I am soon going to be coming up with a brand. The Night Owl Gaming Society is going to become its own brand in a sense, and I'll be doing some DM consultation videos. I'll be doing some contact and some interviews with folks like Darsh and other folks in the D&D community, and even doing some reviews of some interesting products.
Very much so. Very much so. Let's keep that a mystery. Yeah. No, show it, but just don't give your review and tell anybody what it is yet. It's way more intriguing than what you think, I'm sure already.
Fair enough. All right, my dear friend, final thoughts?
No, I think it's been great. Great participation. A lot of folks seem to really enjoyed this. So I thank you so much, sir. I'll tell the quick story again. John jumped into one of our workshops many weeks ago. It seems like it's been well over a month ago. And just totally slayed. And I knew that he played Dungeons and Dragons. I probably knew that he was a DM, but I did not know he had such a wealth of information tucked deep inside his brain. So you are a sage, sir, and I'm very grateful for this. I feel like in anything that I've done, I've always strive to get mentors, to find people that are better than me at something, so that I can have something to strive to get better at. A bar at which to rise above, or rise to at least. So thank you for holding the bar for me, and giving me some great information, and helping me get that information out to other people. We at Initiative Roles are grateful for you, sir.
Fair enough. Well, I as an individual in the Nogs are very grateful for you guys over at Initiative Roles for helping me kind of come out of obscurity, as it were. And just let me make one final note to the folks that are watching. Everything we've talked about today, this system works well for me and has worked well for others, but it doesn't work well for everybody. Dungeons and Dragons and other types of tabletop role-playing games is an individual experience. And what works for us may not work for you. All we're doing is simply trying to give kind of a glimpse into how our brains work and how we utilize things. Use or don't use anything that we gave you, or whatever tips we shared. Your mileage, as always, may vary. This is not an end-all be-all, and we're not preaching to you about the one true way. It is a group all role playing comes down to the idea of a group storytelling, and it is you as the DM or you as the player sitting with someone helping to tell a story, and all we want you to do is come sit at the table and help us tell a story. And if you can use the skills we've given you, if you wish to, that's fine. If not, then I'm sure, will find your own way and have your own fun with D&D. And there is no harm, no foul in that at all.
Absolutely. As we like to say, no matter how much you plan, no matter how much advanced work you put into your game, true adventure grows wild from the roots of spontaneity. So feel free to embrace that and use these tools that John just gave you and go forth and make great adventure, guys. Excellent. So we do have one other question. Looks like they got answered. We're located in Louisville, Kentucky area.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully when restrictions get and cons start going up again, we can make some appearances at some gaming cons and stuff. That'd be really super rad.
Yep, I have had the opportunity. Luckily for me, is I have been able to actually. Are you on this side of me, or are you on that side of me?
I have no idea.
On your screen, what side of you?
Other side. I'm on the other side.
Okay, so I have had the opportunity to reach out and touch him once. So we actually have physically contacted.
No. Cool.
All right, guys.
So yeah, stay tuned, guys. Hopefully we'll be getting some more stuff out to you soon. So
all right. Well, on behalf of the Night Owl Gaming Society, I, John Cowgell, will sign off, and thank you very much for coming to join us.
Yeah, take care, everybody. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
And on behalf of Initiative Rolls, that's Rich Darshwood, or somewhere.
That's me.
Guys, thanks so much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Enjoy your Sunday, guys.